Yes, thank you. I found myself with some confusion, and now I'm hoping that you can give me some guidance. I just love the idea of the vibration and establishing the vibration for what I want. I, like probably a lot of other people, have got into the idea of action. So if I want good health, I have to eat this way, and I have to do this, and I have to look for herbs, and I have to read this, and and all these doing. I'm looking to see if there's a balance between the energy I put into achieving that proper vibration and the doingness that I do, how much attention I should put on that.
Well, there is a balance, and we like the clarity with which you have expressed this, and so you will extract clarity back. There are a number of things that we want to say as a basis first, and that we'll begin by saying to you, action that is inspired from alignment is delicious action. Action that is inspired from awareness of what might go wrong, which is action that is not inspired. In other words, that's sort of like motivated. Inspired action is source calling you. Motivated action is my awareness of what could go wrong and my choosing action from that perspective, and they are very different. Next, we want to say to you that over time, through trial and error of life, you have come to many beliefs. Now, a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. A belief is not about truth. A belief, although it can be, well, every belief is really true, because a belief is a thought that you keep thinking, so it's an activated vibration, and law of attraction will respond to that activation, and eventually it will manifest, and then you will call it truth or reality. So you have, almost all of you, beliefs about things that don't serve you. And the way that comes about is that people use all kinds of things as their criteria for whether they should give their attention to it or not, rather than the way it feels. If Esther laughs at herself, because sometimes she will admit she would rather be right than feel good. And the thing that's interesting about that, we said to her the other day, she was contemplating something, and she said, but Abraham, I believe that my assumption is right. In other words, I know what that person is thinking and doing. I believe that my assumption is right. And we said, your assumption is right, but it is not serving you. Isn't that interesting? You're dead right. Your assumption is absolutely right. But the more you beat the drum of that, the more you deprive yourself of the alignment, which is where your joy is, you see. So what happens is, as you live life, you come to all kinds of assumptions because they've been shown to you by others. Sometimes people will say, but Abraham, it's true. Therefore, I should give my attention to it. And we say, because something is true only means somebody focused there long enough that they made it their reality. So, now this is all by way of that basis that we are wanting to lay. So, now we're just going to give you some very hard facts about law of attraction. If you believe that some food that you might eat is detrimental or inappropriate, and you eat it, you've got chaos in your vibration, and you're going to get detrimental results. What happens to people is, instead of working on lining up the way they feel, they want the world to come into agreement about whether that really is detrimental or whether it isn't. They want something outside of them to decide what's right and wrong to eat, what's good and bad to eat, what's healthy and not healthy to eat. And what we want to say to you is that if you will disregard what everything outside of you is telling you, And you will decide that you're going to line up your energy. Now, not only will you find things that you want to eat that will benefit you, but you will discover that there are all kinds of things that you formerly thought you shouldn't eat that you can very well eat and still experience well-being from them. Your body is a veritable chemical factory. It is more sophisticated than any factory that you have on your planet. And it has the ability to take whatever it is that you consume and extract from it what is valuable and put it together in various combinations in order to give you the nutrition that the cells of your body are asking for. Your body is a fascinating mechanism in that you have trillions of cells that are wanting different things for different reasons at different times from different foods. And the intelligence of your body has not even begun to be understood by the scientific or medical community. So it's sort of like surgery with a chainsaw. The way humans approach their physical body. It's a very bulky approach to it. So we would put things into very simple terms. If we were standing in your physical shoes and our upbringing had taught us that certain foods were inappropriate, so much so that when we eat them we feel uneasiness, guilt or fear or concern. Rather than stopping and saying something's wrong with that food and that's why I feel bad in eating it, we would say something far more accurate. My thought about this food and my corresponding action are out of whack. In other words, you could be in alignment by not eating that food. That would bring you into alignment. Or by changing the way you feel about the food when you eat it. But the last thing we would do is eat the food and feel bad about it, because that's just asking for vibrational contradiction. You have to know, when you look at people, there are so many people eating a variety of foods and getting different responses from them. You just must know that there's something else in the equation other than the action of eating or not eating the food. So then you begin saying, all right, my goal is to approach my life in alignment, which means when I think of that person, I'm going to reach for the thoughts that feel best to me when I think about that person. When I think about that piece of food, I'm going to reach for the thoughts that feel best to me about that piece of food. In other words, no matter what it is, you're seeking alignment with source. And we promise you, if you were about to ingest something, that Esther was delivered a piece of fish last night in a restaurant, and when the plate was set on the table, she felt an aversion to it. She actually backed right up from it. And Jerry noticed it and said, "What's wrong?" And Esther said, "I'm not sure." When she put her nose closer to it, she said, "It doesn't smell right to me." And so she just put it on another plate and did not eat it. Now, we are not encouraging you to push through. In other words, whether there was something wrong with that fish or not, or whether Esther just thought there was something wrong with that fish, eating it would not have been a good thing to her. There are many people who get sick on food that somebody else could eat and not get sick on. So how do you explain that? Was there something wrong with the food, or was there just vibrational discord? And we say, we don't see what possible difference it makes. In other words, we don't want you to try to get the world to come into agreement. We just want you to come into agreement. Most of you are like a two-headed monster, and you got one head going that way and one head going that way. We just want both heads to go in the same direction. So when who you really are and who you are being in this moment are in alignment, you will thrive, you see. And you could take any subject, whether it is a subject of food or a subject of behavior or a subject of religion. In other words, you just have to finally come round to understanding that there is not one right way of approaching life. You are much more complex beings than that. And so when you say, I'm going to come into alignment with me. So then you say, well, what is it? What is my reason for eating? So you say, my reason for eating is 100% only to fuel my body. That's my only reason for eating. And we say, really, we've never met one that was really the case. Are you sure that there are not other intentions that you hold? And you say, well, yes, when I think about it, I want to fuel my body. I do like taking care of my body. I want to give my body the very best possible nutrition because I like the idea of the fueling of it. I also find that I enjoy the social aspects of food. I like savoring. I like co-creating. I like interacting. I like the taste of food. I like the pleasure of food. So I like the pleasure of food and I like the value of food. Those are my intentions. And then so many humans get cross-current of that because they really believe that they can't have pleasurable food and valuable food at the same time. And so that's where they get. And so a part of them is asking for the pleasure and another part is asking for the value. And then they say pleasure there but no value, value there but no pleasure, pleasure there but no value. And we say you're doing it to yourselves. There's value in everything that you eat if you could get into alignment with it. And there's pleasure in so much that you see as value if you would get into alignment with it, you see. It's a vibrational alignment. So the way we would approach food, as we said earlier, we would get down the road a little bit with it. We wouldn't wait until we're at the restaurant where someone's offering us something and try to use that moment in time to catch up vibrationally with everything that we've been doing forevermore. Instead, we would begin looking down the road and we would begin saying, next month or the month after, I'm going to be in total alignment with food. And in the meantime, I'm going to begin gravitating more and more to the things that are of vibrational value to me. I'm going to begin reaping the benefit of all of the wonderful food that is available to me. And as you talk in those general terms, and then you can shore that up by saying, and I'm going to, in my appreciation of food and in my appreciation of life, in my appreciation of so many things, I'm going to get more and more in alignment with my source. And as I get in alignment with my source, I'll be able to feel the alignment of my food. Jerry and Esther have found a restaurant. It's called Marché in Eugene. And their bus is being worked on in the area. And so they eat a lot of meals at Marché when they are in the area. Every meal. Or nearly so. And every night, when the lovely person would put the salad that Esther began her meal with in front of her, as Esther picked up her fork and dug into the salad before it even touched her lips, goosebumps would ripple over her body. Literal goosebumps of pleasure would ripple over her body. And she would say to Jerry, my inner being is really excited about this salad. Which is accurate. In other words, in their alignment, in their positive expectation, in their alignment with well-being, in their love of life, in their expectation of what this restaurant will put before them because of the positive experiences they've had before, Esther was in utter alignment. Bite after bite, beginning of the meal to the end of the meal. And so what we are saying is that as she comes to recognize that that is an indication that the intentions that she holds and where she is vibrationally are in alignment, that's what that means. Now, when the waitress put the plate of fish in front of her last night, there were no goosebumps. There was no feeling of alignment. There was a clear indication from her broader sensing being that what was before her now was not in alignment with the intentions that she has identified. Now, this is wonderful guidance, isn't it? In other words, it's, I want it, I don't want it. In other words, a very clear, but that could not be within Esther if she had not aligned with the idea of food, if she had not aligned with the idea of well-being, if she was not in alignment with that broader perspective. So what we're getting at here is, the more you are positively anticipating and the more that you are hanging out in the vibration of well-being as you are thinking about food, then the more accurate your indicators will be when you are trying to decide whether or not you should participate in something. So at the counter last night as they check in, the lovely girl gives them hot cookies in a bag. Esther could hardly wait to get her hands on her hot cookie. Now, she knows from former thoughts and from past experience. In other words, she wants to call the cookie decadent. She wants to call the cookie bad. She wants to call the cookie all kinds of things that she's learned from her past. But she felt a true eagerness for that cookie, a true eagerness for the cookie. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the pleasure of the cookie and Esther's alignment were in place? Or does it mean the pleasure outweighed her believing of value? What does it mean? And we say, when you come into alignment with who you are, you don't have to take one or the other. There can be value in the pleasure. And that's the thing that we want you to understand. The cells of your body, the chemical factory that is you, knows how to extract the value from everything. And your inner being knows, believe it or not, and most humans have a hard time accepting this, your inner being knows that there is value for you in pleasure. How can you not know that? There is value for you in pleasure. In other words, you keep wanting to turn your boat upstream, and you keep wanting the struggle to be the place from where your well-being comes. And so you get yourself in attitudes of deprivation or in attitudes of not allowing. And we want you to understand that there is a fabulous marriage between value and pleasure. And when you finally get it, when you're reaching for those goosebumps, when you are following the path of enthusiasm, and so quite often you'll feel enthusiasm for a cookie, and halfway into the first bite, the enthusiasm is replaced with guilt. Don't eat the cookie when you feel guilty. Not because the cookie has changed, but because your vibration has changed. You get a sense of what we're talking about? So what is our message here? Get happy about the cookie. Get happy about the cookie or do not eat it. Get happy about the salad or do not eat it. Someone says, Abraham, is there really a monster in the bushes, or do I just think there's a monster in the bushes? I'm feeling apprehension. Is there a monster in the bushes? And we say, in any case, get off the bench. Because whether there's a monster in the bushes or whether you just think there's a monster in the bushes, you got fear going on that is detrimental to your being. And when you do something about it, and so this is where that action comes in. So you get up and you move yourself away from where you think the monster is. And we say, that's got to be better than sitting there in fear that there's a monster there. But eventually, we want it to be about alignment, not about running from the monster. Eventually, we want you to be so tuned in, tapped and turned on that when you're sitting on the bench, you know that well-being is yours. You can be on a bench surrounded by monsters, and the monster will not negatively affect you if your vibration's in the right place. Do you know that? The monster is not in charge of your life. Your attention to the monster and its effect upon your vibration is what is in charge of your life. This is deep stuff. Are you getting it? So, is the cookie a monster or not? Well, you decide. You decide. Make peace with it. And let the cells of your body extract the benefit from it. And no longer say there is valuable food and there is desirable food, but they are not the same, because they can be the same. Yes?
Thank you so much.
Yes.
That helps tremendously.
So now we stir more up. Yes, come forward. The questions should be coming fewer, but they are not, have you noticed?
Hello. I'm a little surprised. This is the second year I've been here, and I had some thoughts, but never clarity. And we've been talking a lot about belief systems, and I've been playing a lot with them in my mind, and kind of coming up with the conclusions that you're presenting today. So thank you for answering so many of the questions.
This meeting gathers before you drag your bodies here. Well, doesn't that follow when we talk about how you live life and you launch into your vibrational escrow? Mm-hmm. Isn't that logical? Mm-hmm. And so then in an environment like this, as your expectation increases, then so much that you've been asking for will culminate here. Yes.
Yes. I have kind of a way off question. It's really the one that's seeming the strongest at the moment. And that is Is there a way that you can, or not that, is there a way, would you please coach me in how to fly without any apparatus?
Well, the easiest way to approach that, we must have this in the wrong place. We keep spitting into it. Better? The easiest way is by first acknowledging that you are a vibrational being more than you are the flesh, blood, and bone being. And that vibration travels about easily where the flesh, blood, and bone is affected by gravity. And that you are far more vibrational than you are physical. And that by aligning with that broader perspective, that you can soar, and that you can translate that flying into something that is so visceral and so physical that it will not be as if you are dreaming it. You will actually be flying and interpreting it back into your physical senses. That really is what an out-of-body experience is. It is achieving vibrational alignment from my physical form with the energy of my source, so that I, in combination with the view of source, am living this experience. When you dream, you literally withdraw when you sleep, you literally withdraw your attention from this and you reemerge into non-physical. And the dreams that you think you're dreaming all night long happen in a flash as you are re-entering consciousness. And it is your interpretation of such. In other words, your dreams are your creation also. So when you realize that whether you are dreaming or whether you're walking around in this physical body or whether you're having an out-of-body experience, it is all you that is creating it. So you can create anything that you want. Then acknowledge that this flight that you want is about alignment with the part of you that flies easily. Esther has discovered that her out-of-body experiences, where she flies around on the golf course, or she flies around on the ocean water, or she flies around the bedroom, at the heart of every one of those is a full acknowledgement of her in-the-moment well-being. In other words, a little bit of insecurity will keep you from flying. A little bit. Esther's first steady night flights took place once they moved to a golf course where she could slip out of the window without bothering anyone and fly around without running into anything, and stay close enough to Jerry, who she knew was going to be sleeping in the bed, that she didn't feel insecure. In other words, now we're not telling you that any of those worries are valid, but we will tell you that the absence of them allowed her to fly. So what you have to do is acknowledge that it's easy to fly as the non-physical energy that is you. And that what you're really reaching for is an accurate and vivid, detailed interpretation of the flight. Now, as we give this to you, we're telling you how it really is. And most people, because you're so enamored with the physicality of your life, you think this stuff is real. You do. You think all of this stuff is real because when you knock on it, it makes a noise. And because you are in agreement on what you see. But we want to say to you that everything that is of a physical nature is just your agreement on your interpretation of these vibrations. So if you will relax in your description of what's reality and what's non-physical, and if you will relax in the distinction between the physical you and the non-physical you, and start acknowledging that you are predominantly non-physical, and that your physical being has the ability to interpret that back into physicalness, you can have all kinds of remarkable other dimensional experiences. There are no limitations other than those you place. As Esther was beginning to understand the idea of thought and thought form. She was questioning and thinking about it one night as she went to sleep, and as she was just before she was drifting off to sleep, she sat up in bed because she could hear, it sounded like a crowd of people walking up the driveway. And she looked over at Jerry, wanting to know if he could hear it, and he could not hear it. He was deep in sleep. And then Esther looked over, and she looked out of a window that is not there in her reality as she knows it. But it was a clear, vivid window, and she looked out into the moonlight, and she saw Tin Man, Scarecrow, Dorothy, Lion, coming up the driveway. Now, Esther has always loved all of them and feels that she knows them from the depiction that has been offered about them, the fictional depiction. But now she is having an experience with them. How can this be? She is thinking. I know they are fiction. And we said, and yet they are thought form. They are really no more fictional than you, because you are only thought form that has been thought upon long enough that now you're in agreement. So she walked through the window and into the driveway and spent what felt to her like many hours conversing, getting to know them, singing. She knows all of their songs. Now, most people in hearing something like that would say, no, Abraham, you misunderstand. This is not the flying I want to do. This is not the out of body. I want something real. And we say, you've got to blur the lines between what you consider to be real and what you consider to be vibrational. You've got to accept that you are vibrational beings and that you are vast in your ability to focus before you can start having those experiences that are a departure from the reality that you have been embracing. In other words, you have to start really leaning toward your acknowledgement of who you really are. And we're not really big on you going too far there because you have such reason for being here. If you knew how much you wanted to be in these bodies, you would not be trying so hard to get out of them. In other words, there's power and reason for being focused here. And so usually your out-of-body experiences are a very small part of your experience. In other words, because your inner being is not really going to be a big advocate of you spending a lot of time out of your body. But it is very helpful to have that broader vantage point in order to get a greater look at the total you see. Mm-hmm. So we would begin by saying things like, I like the idea of seeing the total me, and I really want to begin to interpret through my physical human form that broader advantage. I want to eat my salads with my inner being present, and I want to fly around the planet with my inner being present. I want to get a sense of what's going on in my world from that broader perspective. I want to view this world through the eyes of Source. That's the best way to get those flights going. I want to see the world through the eyes of Source. But you got to line up with the way Source sees the world. You can't be condemning what half of the world is doing and see the world through the eyes of Source. You've got to be in love with this world and in love with the people of the world and in love with you. In other words, to be a vibrational match to Source takes some deliberate thinking. And the more you do it, the more you soar as Source does, you see.
Yes. Thank you.